Hi, I'm Matt from HockeyReviews.ca, and this is Warrior Ritual X4 Pro goalie knee guard review. We have a bunch of knee guards on this table, including my previous favorite and basically standard for solid knee guards, which was Bauer 1X, and they were fantastic, and I wore them for a very long time. I'm going to do a short video on why I have gotten out of these and why I've moved on and why I currently don't wear the upgraded ones, instead of making this video longer than it needs to be. I also have these CCM KF Pros. These are basically the social media darling in terms of all the accounts online saying how amazing they are and how they're fantastic. And I decided to take a look at them because you do see these a lot out there and I wanted to see if they're any good. And we also have the paw knee guards as well. And the reason these are out here is because I have done protection testing with the puck machine with these X4 Pro knee guards, and I have put them directly against these CCMs and the paws to see how good they are compared to the non-influencer favorites, which everyone recommends these all over the place, and the influencer favorite, to see how these Warriors stack up against them and if they are possibly the better one, even being less bulky and a lot cheaper. Now, just a quick thing about Warrior knee guards. There is also a Pro Plus model, which is bigger. This cap specifically here is bigger, and it's also made out of a composite material. I believe this one is advertised as a plastic material. It is wider in it. This is a more slimming knee pad compared to the other one. I picked this one because it's kind of closest to the 1X one. So I wanted something that wasn't massive like these ones, but something that would still be protective enough. Now, I've done previous reviews on Warrior knee guards before, specifically the G2 it was called. And before they did this plate properly, this used to just be foam, and I had protection issues, so I had to add foam to it. So Warrior did make a bunch of changes on these, and I'll go over all the details on here on why these are really good. Before we jump into the actual review, one thing I want to know in the comments below is, what is your favorite knee pad? Now, I'm going to guess there's going to be a lot of paw answers on here because I've seen that a lot, but I want to see what models people are using and if they had a very specific model in the past that they loved more than anything else. Reebok used to have some awesome models that I wore and reviewed in the past. I kind of regret getting rid of. Bauer has also been very good in the past as well. So I'm really curious to see if people have as fond experience of different older models that they no longer offer. And you want to support the channel and you need a base layer and a protective kind of supportive base layer that helps protect your growing as well as your hips. Check out the Cortec. This is the Pro 1.0 pants. So this one is not quite as restrictive, and this is kind of tight right here in this X pattern. You might have seen these as Under Armour before, or Bauer for the hockey specific ones. There's also the Core 3.0, which is a lot stiffer, as you can see. Really helps protect my growing and keeping it kind of in place and make sure it doesn't overstretch itself. There's a discount code, and you click the link in the description. Use that discount code to get a discount off, help support myself, as well as get you some pretty awesome base layer pants that really do help with injury prevention and help stabilize your core while playing. Otherwise, if you want to support the channel and you don't want to buy anything hockey related, you can check out the links in the description to buy me a coffee. Anything that goes through any of the links always comes back into my channel so I can make more content and do more videos. I always loved Warrior's design on these, how they were 3 pieces. It doesn't really matter if they're 3 pieces to me. It's just kind of how it all fits though, because that's technically a 2-piece. But I always did love how this part sat on the top as a separate part. You had this knee part down here, which was always really, really well padded, and something I noticed a lot of in terms of how comfortable these were compared to other brands. And then you have that outer shell, which was a huge upgrade over stuff I saw in the past. Now, going into some details on these though, before I jump into the whole review of it and why I like all these, they do have this little piece for garter belts, which I love and use all the time. Also, even if it isn't the little 2 thigh pieces like these that people use, you can just end up working with it anyways. You can create your own. For this one, as you can see, it doesn't have the same attachment points, so I just put a bungee between it, and look, now it's the same attachment point. Skate lace does wonders for making things work when they aren't totally designed to work that way. So I use this one for my garter, but it does also have the lace in piece right here for pants, or if people just want to lace in straight to a belt or something else, they can do that in here. So I like how that is an option and Warrior isn't kind of skimping on that. Now, for their straps, this is something that always bothers me, but at the same time, it really works well, so I can't totally complain. I love when companies do little tabs like this for easier pulling. Bauer did it right here on this one. They didn't do it on this one, and then they did it on this one. Warrior went the opposite way for this. As you can see, they thin out this tab, but I have to say, usually I'm complaining about this because it's harder to get off and my skin rips. For some reason, this just works really well on my knee pads though. And when I pull these off, you can just grab this and it comes off really easily, as well as it kind of sits in here and doesn't get caught on things because it doesn't have this piece. Now, this is totally a thing where this little strap always got caught on things on these Bauer ones. It was super annoying. This needs to be longer and thinned out. It wasn't, this part always came off and got caught on things. I hated it. These being thin are normally the opposite of what I want, but for knee pads, I'm gonna give them a pass and say this is actually the better design because you can flatten that out pretty good. And then it is still really easy to pull off like that. And it goes for all of them. You can flatten it out really good, it comes off really easy. Flatten it out really good, comes off really easy. This shell right here, I believe is just plastic. You have to upgrade to the Pro Plus to get the composite. Maybe when they do their 5s, maybe I'll buy a Pro Plus to take a look at those and kind of compare them. But this is a plastic and you can't really see any plastic on here. Like nothing's exposed. It all has just nylons throughout it and on the back side. So nothing is, like I said, exposed on there, but it works and is totally fine. The connection points to it are these little pieces right here. It has lacing through here, which laces also through here. And the extra piece is right down there. So not really accessible in terms of like, if you really want to undo this, you could just cut it and like retie it yourself, but not the easiest thing. Do want to adjust that? You probably could, but again, not super easy. And it's not really made for that. It is kind of just the connection piece. Same on the other side as well. And looking on that side, you can see it there. The other connection piece is this little tab down here. You can see it doesn't connect right here. So this does allow it to float this way. And the way it connects at the bottom of this with this Gen Pro loop, you can see how it kind of floats up and down and really allows this piece to act as a floating tab there, which I think is really fantastic. Obviously the strap on here is just right there and it is long enough, which is another thing I gotta give Warrior credit to. I've never really had to crank these to keep them up. Garter really helps with that, but this gets a decent enough runway where you can really strap it the way you want to. But again, I never really had to absolutely crank these. So maybe if it goes longer, people would like that more, but for me, it worked really well for that. And then the connection piece for the bottom part right here is this elastic, which is nice because again, it does allow it to kind of move a bit away from it and doesn't really feel like it's ever interfering. It does have a bit of give on it, which is absolutely fantastic. Now this inner piece, I've seen people talk about this flap a lot, not on this model though. So it's on, I think the E Plus where it doesn't have this piece in here. And this isn't made of the hardest plastic. That step down doesn't have this. And people always question if they put this elastic piece over or under, and Warrior has said you can do both. But I think this is a good show of basically, really it's originally made to be kind of sitting like this because when they went to the Pro model and this is a bigger cap for padding, it's obviously on the outside and it sits above and this kind of holds your knee in place. Now to get an idea of how this works, I'm gonna put this on top of my knee and it just sits like this. So that elastic part sits right down there and then this piece sits on top like that. So you have that extra shell. Now, since I am here, I'm going to demonstrate why this shell and why this part is really nice. One, this is a really nice material that barely touches your knee because of this piece right here, but nice nash. And it is padded a bit, just like on the side pieces. This is a foam. I think there might also be a plastic in here as well though. So it has some foam in here for padding, but also a piece of plastic on there. And the reason that this is here is because when you put this over top, you can see that now becomes the layer right under the shell. So you have an extra layer of padding on top of that shell. So if you took this layer off and you didn't have this piece, that shell would have that gap I talked about right here between the padding parts and your skin, or knee in this case. So that way, if this wasn't here, this shell, all the impacts would go straight into your knee without that extra padded layer, which is a problem and has been a problem and is not a great design. This has that nice barrier between it. The old ones just had this barrier, like the lower level ones, at least the G2 I tried, it didn't have this piece as well. And it wasn't the best, but also didn't have that plastic insert on this itself. So this is an excellent idea behind it. Now, if Warrior wants to get really crazy, and I haven't actually seen the Pro Plus, so I can't talk about if this is any bigger on that, they could make this even thicker in terms of foam for padding on here to really add to even more protection. You could add thicker foams in here as well to have more dampening, but even on that, if you wanted to, you could just make this even thicker, like the thicker blocks down here for landing on it. So you get even more protection on here and softening that impact without really changing the size of this. So an option for Warrior in the future for more protection, but this is pretty solid overall. And since we're down here too, you can see how this bottom leg ends up fitting. You get that landing comfort through here and it wraps around your leg like so. This design and idea hasn't really changed all that much for a few generations. And they're just like really making small changes and kind of, I'm gonna say perfecting things, because these are very good. Now, when we look on the inside, you can see the segmented pieces on here. And I talked about landing and you can see how thick that landing foam is. And there is a nice soft foam on one part of it, but you can see like how thick this piece is and how pretty plush it is. It's still firm enough that you can't bottom out on it really, but it is soft enough so it is still comfortable. And I will say this right now, these are the most comfortable knee pads I have ever landed on, ever, wearing anything. These have been absolutely fantastic. When I've had massive knee issues with these ones a lot, because you can see the foam is a lot harder on this one, and it's just not that, honestly, doesn't feel as high as quality. It feels like this works better when it's not a landing piece and is a protective piece, because it feels pretty similar to what this is. So it's just not great for landing on. Knee blocks like Vaughn's, which are so hard, absolutely killed with these. I couldn't wear them in back-to-back games. This one was no problem at all, which is saying a lot. But these have been the best in terms of knee pads I have worn, and is by far the most comfortable retail knee pad I have seen and worn, and I've worn a lot of them. The padding on here is fantastic, and this design is fantastic. It really does a good job of kind of wrapping your leg to ensure that you don't like kind of land on the inside parts, which I have seen people say they land on like this and it hurts. I've never noticed that, and it's wrapped good and has been pretty solid. And again, huge fan of landing on these. Are super comfortable. Now, another thing I'm a fan of is this material in here. They have their Polygiene, and this liner is pretty famous for Warrior. It's a nice touch thing. It feels really nice. I do sweat in these, and especially down here, it's kind of harder to do in terms of like Polygiene, because this is a more grippy material than what this is. So if you put this kind of down here, you might not get that grip of here and holding this in place as well. But I do notice these do get decently wet down here, but it's not like I overheat or anything in them, and I haven't noticed many issues with them as well. I do like this material a lot better, but down here is very plush. It's pretty grippy, and it's pretty nice. This does feel like a similar material to what's on their gloves. While it does get slimy in their gloves, I don't really notice it getting slimy in here, just because it's not, well, for me, it's not skin to skin contact. It is with a base layer. For knee pads sliding up and down, this is a thing where I have the system at this point with garter belt and the socks where my knee pads never move anywhere. These ones, they didn't even slide, they just landed wrong, but the knee pad itself was always staying put. For these, I've never had issues with them sliding or moving. I have worn them without the garter belt and without the socks, and I do notice that they come up and down a bit more, and you really have to crank straps and even maybe use tape if you're going that route. But really at this point, I feel like the garter system, holding this up as well as a sock over top to make sure all the straps are kind of contained, to make sure the knee pad is contained, and to make sure better movement in your blocks is kind of the perfect combination of things. I have not had sliding issues with that at all. Without it, I'm kind of at the point of, if a knee pad slides on you without it, you should just go to that system and it works. Without it, yes, they move, but you have to do something to it. And I don't ever blame a knee guard as a problem if they move at all without wearing a system or taping them in some sort, because it's just too hard of a spot on your leg. And people's legs are so different shapes and everything that you just have to have something else to kind of anchor it, and it's just the way it is now. So for protection on here, and this is the part that I am very impressed at, and I'm going to show the results of the puck machine in a second for this. This does a really good job of layering that protection. This top piece shouldn't really be hit all that much with pucks. If it does have a pretty solid piece of foam in here, and also a plastic in here. So the back is pretty soft, you can see foam, but the top here definitely feels like there's a plastic in here, and you can feel that ridge right here. Hopefully it shows off on camera. So you do have that protection, but this isn't really the point that's supposed to be getting hit. This point should be up in your pants to kind of add an extra layer on there. It does a decent job of wrapping everywhere as well, but this is all mostly your pants. You have this spot for protection, and it wraps pretty well, as you can see. And it doesn't only rely on this piece as well. I talked about that piece underneath, and when you have that layer of padding, it does a good job overall. Now, if you get hit over here, there's not necessarily that layer, but I've never noticed this piece ever really getting in the way, and that would be on the outside of it too. So it would really be an odd part, because that should be right against your pad. And then this piece, the layers you can see are kind of like this. So I also have never noticed this part being a problem. You can even see some marks right here from pucks, but when that's worn like this, it just works well. And all of this has been really solid for protection. Now, you can get better than this. You can see how this is kind of flexy right there, which means it could be firmer, and it is plastic, but again, you can kind of flex it a bit, and there could be some more padding behind it. This shell on here, you can see, is harder to flex. This shell material and like hardness would probably add to more protection on this, but the whole package of this works better than what this whole package does. So I can't really fault Warrior all that much, and they do have the Pro Plus if you want to go for that more protection. But for this, it has been absolutely solid because of that layer on here, as well as this part right here doing the puck dampening. Yes, you can feel hard shots through this. They sting for a little bit and then you're totally fine. I've never had like numb knee or dead knee from it, which I have had in the past, with knee pads, and some of these that I'm wearing right here I've had. This one wasn't the case at all. Even with the puck machine test where I felt it, it felt a lot better and less painful than what the other ones did. So it was really, really good for that. So one of the reasons why I love these X4 Pro, and Warrior's been doing this for a while, knee pads though, is the whole protective part of this knee pad is this cap. So it's hard to get down here when you're actually playing. You can see a puck could sneak under here, as you can see. So it might be a little bit nicer if it came a little bit lower, and the X4 Pro Plus is gonna have a bit bigger of this, but this is the protective piece on this knee pad, and you can see, you can't see any gaps at all. I'm wearing bare leggings, but look at all that is all the knee pad protection itself everywhere, and it's not really exposed anywhere. You have this inner flap as well as the outer flap, and this outer flap is doing the bulk of protection. This inner flap just kind of adds to it and gives you a dampening layer underneath the hard plastic piece. But these are a really solid piece right here where you can see you have multiple levels everywhere. I might want to see this kind of extend down a bit to get this. Now, if you wear these lower, so it's like pushing down here, it might, but the way I naturally wear them, and that way it sits for me pretty naturally, you can see like down here, it's possible. It's gonna be hard to hit that, but it's still possible. So I would like to see maybe this get a little bit bigger, but overall, this protective piece is very good on these, and it's not a big and bulky knee pad either. Side on this one, you can obviously see this, how this cap comes over and doesn't leave this area really exposed, which I've noticed on some other ones. And then you obviously have the thigh piece as well that comes up into the pants to cover that. It would be very hard to get the outer piece of this like ever hit. You would have to do something kind of crazy to get this hit. But everything on this side does really well, and it wraps really well around your knee too. Overall, this is simply one of the best knee pads I've ever worn, and it's probably all around the best knee pad I've ever worn. There are better ones out there for a lot more money. The factory mad knee pads have really solid protection, and they have solid build quality where you can swap pieces out and pretty solid landing on there, but these ones are a fraction of the cost. I'm sure those Swiss ones are amazing too. Would love to do a puck machine test on them, but alas, I'm not dropping like $600 Canadian or more to test them out when these ones are absolutely solid. Again, these aren't the best in terms of protection. There's beefier and bulkier things out there, while Warrior also has the Pro Plus, which would be better. They're basically the best in landing that I've used. I'm sure the pause with the extreme gel on there might be better, but again, those are reaching way higher prices than what these ones are. These ones are unbelievably solid and easily the best all around, especially for the price. I honestly don't understand why people don't buy just these. I really wish Warrior stopped making the E-line and just did these, because I think those E-lines without the extra padding piece in there and without using like the better plastics, they could be better. More people should just buy these. When I worked at a retail store, I sold out of these all the time when they first came out, and then sold out of Warriors all the time. People always wanted to try the CCM ones. They saw these ones all over the place, like the previous version of these, and they saw the plastic ones of those, also the smaller ones. I put people in Warriors and they're like, wow, okay, these are great. And I would explain how this cap works. People would like it. These are a phenomenal knee pad and my go-to recommendation, much cheaper than the other options, but these are solid and basically the, I think, standard of what knee pads should be. And the fact that some companies are coming out with new stuff that isn't as good as this tells you they're not really paying attention, and it's really disappointing. Warriors has done something awesome here. Highly recommend them. So that's about it for this video. Obviously, probably end up buying the 5 Pro Plus to take a look at those. If this video was helpful and you want to see me reviews, for example, a 5 Pro Plus, let Warrior know on social media that this review is helpful and you want to see hockey reviews review more of their equipment. Greatly appreciate it on my end. Hopefully it gets me on the radar so I can do that. Thank you very much for watching this video. Remember to subscribe to me on YouTube. Follow me on Instagram and TikTok. Links are in the description. If you want to support the channel and you're buying hockey equipment anyways, check out the links in the description. If you're in Canada, to Hockey Supremacy. If you're in the US, to Pure Hockey. Clicking those links, making a purchase gives me a kickback so I can keep making more content and doing more reviews. Otherwise, if you want to support the channel without buying anything hockey specifically, check out the links in the description to Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee. Everything through any of those links always comes back into the channel so I can keep making more content and doing more reviews. Thank you very much for watching, and take it easy.
You're watching HockeyReviews.ca.